in this group.
Yeah, it just kind of it depends on what day and what people are doing. I mean, we have a couple like Vladimir right now is like studying for his medical exams. Like he's in school to become a doctor. And, you know, Claire accepted my invite and then disappeared for like 5 weeks because she was like traveling through Europe. So, you know, that's one of the benefits is that everybody gets to kind of work on their own schedule. But there's definitely a few in there that are more social butterflies than the rest. So.
Yeah. I know. I try to chime in once in a while so I can like be a part of it, but I'm like, this is too much digging my phone. I gotta take it off for a second. So
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people in the group. Sorry, situated. A lot of people in the group are professional photographers and that's what they want to do as a career, and I'm totally opposite. And I have a job and love my job, and this is kind of like I still consider this a job and photography. I want to learn it, but I don't have to worry about making, a living off of this. I have a job that I love. It's awesome. So I'm a little different, but.
We'll definitely, we'll come back to that after we're done doing your critique because I'm really interested to kind of hear more about why you joined. So, did you get to you already did your critique with Scott's cohort before you jumped over, right? You're just a glutton.
Right, I did it and it was fine and it went through. What'd you say?
You're just a glutton for punishment and wanted to do it again?
It's a totally new group and a totally different person, and one of the things that attracted me to like say, hey, like he said, hey, if you want to make a switch, people do it all the time, you can. And I was like, no, I'm committed to staying with you. I got into it. The whole experience in itself was cool, so I was just like, screw it, I'll stay. But then as people shared more and more stuff, and then I saw some of your critiques, and then you jumped into the chat that he had set up, I was like, I think I'll get more out of it if I switch, and so that's kind of when the decision was made. But I love the critiques that you give, so I was like, all right, I want to go through that first process so I don't feel like I'm like skipping something. Not because I like to get beat down or punishment, but just because I think it'll be good for what I'm trying to do. So.
I love that me hopping in one of the other cohorts to just give you guys a hard time. You were like, yes, that's my people. I want to go there.
Well, I had already seen some of your videos, and I know that you're from the Philadelphia area, so it's relatively close to me. I mean, I'm at State College, so so I don't know. I was just like, I think it would be a better fit for the direction that I want to go. When I initially signed up for this, which was a long time ago, I was still doing a lot of HDR and landscape, and I still do it now because I can, but the direction has definitely shifted more towards portrait and even getting more into fashion now. That's kind of the direction I want to go. But,
nice. All right, well, let's see some of them.
Okay. Are we live already?
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, I didn't know.
That thing to the world.
All right, so let me share this screen. Okay.
Okay.
It's not showing you. That's all right. I put it into full screen mode, but it's not working, so I'll just blow it up.
Yeah, full screen has not been Google friendly with some of the other people too. So.
Can you see that big enough, or should I show it in a different?
No, that's good. There's enough of it to get the idea. So you've gotten to watch a few of my critiques. So I do it a little bit different. So you're gonna start out with self-critique first, and then I'm gonna come in and tell you where you're right and where you're wrong.
Right. Well, so I chose a variety of pictures for a variety of reasons, but I chose this one because it was actually the second shoot that I ever did, I guess with people. And the first shoot I ever did was with somebody in your area, and you may know him. But so this was a kind of a hotel shoot, and the idea was that I wanted to do kind of like a date theme. So I have Pinterest. I hear you talking about Pinterest a lot. And so I create these boards that are like idea boards. In some cases, they're just like general ideas. In some cases, they're like built around a theme. In this case, it was supposed to be the date, and it was supposed to go from like somebody getting ready to getting ready to leave the room and go out on the date like they are in this picture, and then coming back and being like the morning after type shot. So that was kind of the theme behind the whole thing. Because this was the second person I ever shot with, the first time I ever shot with somebody like in a hotel or anything, I kind of went through a bunch of hits and misses on me. So I see all kinds of problems in this photo, and it's just one that I chose because you know, I still like it. I like it because I see the progression from this 2.5 years ago to now, but um, you know, the lighting is weird to me. I think the white balance is off on this to some degree. I think that there's in the top corner, you know, this thing drives me absolutely crazy. That little bright spot drives my eyes. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but
Hmm.
in the mirror, yeah, there's a lot of things in this that I don't like, but I still like the picture. So
Okay. So I love the concept of the whole shoot. I'd be really interested to have you upload like the whole series of these shots into the art gallery so we can see the progression. 'Cause that's a really cool concept. Um, I am not a terribly big fan of the shot though. It looks like new work to me.
it looks like
But
what?
it looks like new work to me. It
Yeah.
looks like somebody getting comfortable with having, you know, models on the other side of their lens. But the lighting, I think, is really pretty. I am not a stickler for white balance unless, you know, unless you're in competition for white balance. If you look at, if you look at my shots, like my white balance is so off intentionally in all of the photos, and I actually painted my studio warm colors to intentionally cause light casting forward because I think it's more flattering. So the white balance is not bothering me at all in this shot. I love the concept of the pose. I love that you gave her something to do with her hand. I see a lot of people that pose, and that's exactly what it is. It's a pose. So this is a story, and that's good. You know, she's obviously messing with the heel and trying to fix the strap, which is really good. Things that bother me about the shot, I don't like the black line on her right or left. I don't know what that is going up, if that's like a door frame or something. Um, I see the little hot spot that you were pointing out. I'm a huge fan of reflections, but I don't feel like it adds anything here. The mirror behind her, it's really distracting for me because the back of her head and the dress, it's just this like blob behind her, and it's because of the frame, it's severed, so it's just kind of floating over there in the negative space, and it's not adding anything. So honestly, I probably would have gone in and edited that out and just taken that out, along with, it looks like on the very edge of the right one, there's like the edge of the door frame. I probably would have taken that out and just smoothed it out too. Um, the the other thing that bothers me is the leg of the chair that is directly behind her leg. Because it's so dark and it's such a small amount, it makes it look like her shoe is deformed. Like, you have to look at it for a minute because her leg perfectly hides the fourth leg, and it's just the foot of it that comes out. So I probably would have cloned that out as well, just to give that nice straight line down the edge of her leg. Love the décolletage in the collarbone. I think that's really pretty. I don't mind the hair in the face, but it does bother me that there's like a hole between the hair that's falling down. Like, she's got all of it in the bangs, and then you see the side of her face with no important information whatsoever. You're not seeing any of her eyes, her nose, or her mouth to give her away, and those are the parts that are more sensuous. You know, along the back of the jaw and the cheekbone isn't necessarily adding to it, so it's just this negative white space. Um, it depends on the shot as far as like cropping limbs, and you have all of it in, but her one hand is visually cropped because of her legs. So having her hand on the knee, or having that knee turned down a little more so you can see her hand on the chair, may have made it a little bit stronger. I'm also not sure how I feel about the fact that you cut the top of her head off. But I love the body language of it, and I love that the light accentuates all of her muscle tone and her collarbone and cleavage without being invasive or overpowering the shot. So I'm gonna give it a 1. I think that it shows promise, but I don't think that you really hit the mark. This wouldn't make your portfolio for me, but I do think it shows promise in the sense that I would love to see you reshoot this with where you are now.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree 100%. I don't have much to add to that. I mean, like I said, this was kind of like I mean, talk about the first time you go into a hotel room with a random person that you meet on Model Mayhem, and I'd never shot anybody before except one person in somebody's studio. It was definitely a weird experience. Good, but it actually gave me confidence, but still weird. You know, I just didn't know what I was getting into. But it wasn't as bad as I thought once I started working.
Yeah, and she has a killer figure, so you know, going to meet a beautiful woman in a black dress in a hotel that you've never met before, I'm sure you're making all of your buddies really jealous.
Yeah, they kind of have a different impression of what actually happens
What you
during.
were doing, yeah. All
All
right,
right.
next up. Hmm. Okay, tell me about this one.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I was basically sitting around during a Thanksgiving maybe a couple years ago, or maybe last year, I don't remember. And a friend of a friend, they were in town, and they were like, oh, my friend's a dancer, and we'd love to just hang out and shoot. So I basically set up my studio in my house, and she came, and we shot a series of images. And I don't know, I was kind of, this is kind of me experimenting and messing around in Lightroom and Photoshop, and obviously it's very desaturated and there's not a lot of vibrance to it. And obviously the pose is not something that I came up with. She's, an experienced dancer. But as we shot it, I just loved it. I thought it was a crazy good pose. There was no way that we were going to shoot anything that would be nude. I think if I wanted to improve this image. One thing, I would have taken the black out of the shorts and changed it, and I know that, but I didn't want to go in and go crazy with Photoshop, and she was definitely not somebody that I was going to ask to, hey, for the interest of the shot, let's change this and and put something smaller on. So it is what it is. So that's something that I think it would have been way stronger if it had been, at least the impression that it was fully nude. At first, I didn't like the hair and how it screws with the symmetry of it because it's such a symmetric shot. And so, like, then all of a sudden you have this kind of like low piece, high piece, this big space in the middle. But I kind of feel like it adds to it a little bit, but it still bothers me a little. So I'm curious of your opinion on it. I posted this in the level 3, and then the critiques I got were that the fingers were too close to the edge of the frame because I had it cropped in a little bit more, and so I expanded it back out because I actually had cropped it in to where the fingers were almost touching the edge. So I gave it a little bit more room based on that. I don't know if it helps or hurts it or does anything to it, but yeah, so from my standpoint, I love the symmetry. I like the actual editing of it. The hair is probably the one thing that I'm not sure about, and the shorts I definitely don't like, but I wasn't going to go through the process of photoshopping them out.
Why not?
Um, I don't know. As I've started to shoot more and more, um, now I would have probably said to somebody like this, I would have planned the shoot, and I would have said, this is what we're doing, and you're going to shoot in something that we don't see that. With this girl, she was younger and a student, and I just didn't want to deal with that and go there. So I guess I could Photoshop it out, and I don't think it would be very difficult, but I like to think, like, you know what? Learn from these mistakes and make sure that they don't happen again in camera when you're going to shoot. I don't. If I ultimately put this in a portfolio, then I would say, you know what? I'm going to edit that out. But I haven't really considered what I'm going to be putting into my portfolio. So.
Okay. So spending hours retouching something simple will definitely teach you to pay attention to it next time it's in camera. Which I don't necessarily think that this is a difficult edit. You hit on most of the points that I was going to hit on. I totally agree that these patches of black from her outfit are really detracting away. And it makes me grit my teeth when people say, well, I wasn't going to spend all that time. Because really what you're saying is, I'm lazy. And I can't. Yeah, you're going to lose points for that if you say that in level 9 critique. So we're going to let it go, which is barely.
For the record, I'm not lazy.
No.
I would do it. I just looked at it, and it drives me crazy. I didn't get it in camera. And so I look at it, and I go, well, that's your mistake. You should learn from it. Maybe you're right. Maybe spending a few hours editing this out and making it better will teach me not to do it in camera in the future, but I don't know if I need to do that to learn that lesson.
Well, not only that, but the bottom line is that if this is going to make your portfolio, because it's a beautiful shot, it's going to be in your portfolio. If it's bothering you and then you're having that confirmed in critique. And my guess is that, you know, at least a couple of the people in the cohort would agree and say, I don't know if you got that critique while you were showing it off in there, but I don't care if you get it right in camera or you get it right in Photoshop, as long as you get it right. But when you look at it and say, this is wrong, I don't like this, this is detracting from the image, and you don't fix it, whether you fix it in camera or you reshoot it or you retouch it or you send it to somebody else to retouch, if you let it go, that's laziness, period. So, you know, I totally understand where you're coming from, but no sympathy. So either, you know, either you're a master or you're not, and the master doesn't put out work that isn't worthy of being called mastery. So things to think of. That said, that's really the only thing that's really taking away from it for me is that, and this space between her hair, because it is pulling off the symmetry. I probably would have gone in and just selected her left side and then flipped it to fill in the right side, just so that you didn't have that big gap, which is something that I totally do. I love the symmetry of the shot. I love the muscle tone. I love the retouching that you did on it and the color casting. I'm gonna put you on mute for a second, and you can unmute it just because I'm hearing an echo. Yeah, overall, I think this is a really, really great shot. I'd have to see the other one that was cropped in a little tighter to see if the hands would bother me, but this is the one that you're bringing to critique, so I think it's fine. I love the way that it fits in the shot. The only other thing that I might have played with in camera, that I might play with again if I was testing it, is that it's a little heavy and it leans to her left, our right, because the shadow lines pull you that way, and the shadow under her left foot is a lot stronger than under her right foot. So I might have gone in and dodged and burned that just to make it a little bit more prominent. But I think that and evening out the hair would help to center it and make it more symmetrical, and I might have played with just lighting behind her a little bit just to get rid of the shadow entirely, so that it was just that little bit of reflection of her surrounding her. But you would have to play with that to see if it works. But overall, I think this is a really beautiful shot. So I'm gonna give you a commendable. I was gonna give you exceptional, but I'm not, because you saw the problems and you didn't fix them. So you only get a commendable. So.
I wish you could hear me laughing when you said it, because I was like, I get it. I get it. So,
yeah, you
I'll get headphones next time too. I thought I had some around here, but sorry for the echo.
Okay.
All right. Oops. Okay. All right. So this shot is, again, me kind of experimenting with lighting when I first got started and had a studio in my house, so to speak. And I was just playing around with a one light setup. And this model, she is local and told her parents she wanted to get into modeling, and her parents were like, what the hell do you want to do that for? And I don't get it. And so they came with her to the shoot, and the dad grilled me for like a half hour on why I needed a model release, and I was like, it's just the way it is. And so anyway, they stayed upstairs so that she would be comfortable, and they read books, and then we went down into the studio and shot. And so the lighting, I don't know whether the lighting is good or not. What I do like about the lighting is I love the lighting in her face. I think that there's a little bit, and I could change it now. I see it, that drives me crazy. It's a little bit of a couple hot spots on her chin and on one of her cheeks that I can see now that, like, I saw some other things that I actually edited out from the original 5 that I submitted. Like, her hands were coming down. And you could just see her hands here, and a half hour ago I saw it, and I was like, oh shit, I gotta do this, because otherwise Jess is gonna yell at me. So I edited those out, but I still see things like this in the hot spots. But I love the expression in her face. I kind of love just the way her hair falls. I love that you can still see both of her eyes, but part of it's covered up. I don't want it to be like her whole face, and I like the lighting on her face from this one light. Everything's so white that I get a little bit of reflection that I'm not sure that I like is lighting here and maybe under her chin. I think I would rather that be a little darker, but I would have had to have some kind of like flags to kind of block that from going up, which at the time I didn't. But otherwise, I like the pose. I like everything about this shot.
I really like the shot too. I think the lighting on it's absolutely beautiful. It doesn't bother me at all. It is a little bit hot on her chin, particularly to the point that it looks like bad makeup when they don't match and it's too pale for their complexion. So I probably would have gone in and retouched that and toned that down a little. The light on her jaw doesn't bother me because I feel like if you didn't have that, you have almost the reverse. Like usually we're going for shadow along the jawline so that you have a really defined jawline because it slenderizes you. So the light actually gives you the definition of the jawline, where I feel like if it was all in shadow, it would just kind of blend and there wouldn't be enough separation between her chin and her neck. So that doesn't bother me at all. I love the texture that you're seeing in the light and dark in the folds of the fabric. She has gorgeous, sexy legs. Your angle's a little bit low, so it's making her feet look just a little bit disproportionate. They look a little bit too big for her legs for how slender they are. And I don't know if you actually like liquefied or changed, you know, anything with the structure of her legs, but they're looking just a little bit off perception-wise. So that may have been the angle that you were at. It may have been the lens that you were using. I would have liked to have seen her change her pose just a little bit because she's hunched over and it's not like I'm leaning forward hunched over because that's my thing. It's I'm hunched over bad posture. So if you had had her lean forward a little bit more into her legs, we could have caught her hands because her hands would have came out in front of her knees instead of in between them. And you could have straightened out her back while still giving that curled over kind of feeling to it. But overall, I think it's a really beautiful shot. And I like you're doing this very interesting thing that I don't see a lot of photographers do, where you have what looks to be simple lighting, but it's very potent. It's showing a lot of the muscle definition and the tonality. And you usually get one or the other. You get that kind of flat, editorial kind of lighting, or you get high contrasty, and you're doing a good job of marrying the two almost flawlessly. So I'm gonna give you 2. I think it's commendable. There's a couple of things that are off in it. She could have had just a little bit more energy. She looks just a little bit bored, but I like her expression. I think it's more her body language. That she needed a little bit more tension in her body, not necessarily her face. But overall, it's still a really beautiful shot, and I definitely think it would make your portfolio right now.
Thanks. Yeah, it's actually good. I'm gonna go back and, like you recommend to everybody, to rewatch the Hangouts, and I'll go back and see it and to listen to more of the critiques, and then kind of like sit and analyze the photo and then the critique and everything to see it. But yeah, there's a lot of good points that I probably didn't think about. And when we get through the critique, we can talk more about the lighting and all of that in terms of my style. Okay, you ready for the next one?
Absolutely.
Okay. I usually shoot on a white backdrop. I was kind of like in the habit of that's the one that I would set up, and I have to like build my studio and take it down because I don't have the luxury of having a dedicated studio in my house. And so I decided, I'm going to shoot with a black backdrop this time. This model was actually for the area. I think she was in Playboy in 2000 and I don't even know, a couple years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. And she was like, everybody kind of knows her. She was like a bartender in the area, and she was leaving to go to Kentucky for vet school, and that's where she is now. And I finally said, and we had talked before, but she wasn't shooting at the time, and I said, hey, you're leaving. I know you haven't shot in a couple years, but let's shoot because we haven't and you're leaving. And so we did. And so we did a bunch of different shots and stuff. This was kind of the first time I had played with some lighting where I had 2 lights, behind her shooting in, and then I think that I had a beauty dish and then probably either a reflector or maybe something on the ground to kind of add some fill light. So it was like a 4-light setup, and we were just kind of playing around with things. So for me, what do I critique about it? I probably would have liked to see this, although I'm not sure. I would like to see her straps be about, 2 inches shorter so they don't go off the screen. I
Hmm.
think I had some that were more three-quarter where I could show down to her shins, and the straps would be in it, but then it was less powerful on her body and her face. So I could probably Photoshop the straps out to just have them stop right below it. The hair on the right side of her face, probably left side for us. It's coming into her eye. I don't think that I would be good enough to do that justice to Photoshop it out. But that's something that could have been picked up pre-shooting the image. Um, this one I included in my critique with Scott, and I wanted to include it again. I don't know why, but just because I chose it, I guess. The one negative critique that he said, which I didn't really think, but he picked up on it, was he thought this was a little bit too hot and then maybe blown out. And it's actually not blown out, but I think it's definitely hotter than this side. So I think just kind of balancing those lights. I don't use light meter very often. Sometimes I do, but um, a lot of it's just kind of getting it set in camera and chimping a little bit, and then shooting. So those would be the main things that bother me. The straps are the biggest thing. The eye I don't mind as much, but the straps drive me nuts.
Um,
Sorry, you got it. I'll mute myself.
That's going to be like grounding. Um, so I totally agree with you. If you look at like my series of profile photos, I always have the hair in one eye. So that doesn't bother me at all. I think it's very sexy. It's the Jessica Rabbit effect. I think there's something really sultry about that. The straps and her hands make me crazy though. It totally kills the shot for me. I love the light on her body. I love her expression. She has gorgeous hair. I like the rim lighting. It is a little bit hot on that one side, but not enough to take away from the shot for me. I would have liked to have seen her kick her right hip back a little bit, and drop it down, and that would have given you just a little bit more S curve because she's very slender, but we're not getting that like hourglass figure. The lines kind of run straight up, and you're only getting a little indentation. So I probably would have played with her pose a little bit, and honestly, I would have gone in Photoshop and just touched it just a little, just to give more accentuation to that curve. Um, as far as the straps, if they're too long, and I think this probably would have been better anyway, rather than having them fold over her hands and fall down, you could have actually had her scrunch them up in her hands, and you could have shortened them to the length that you want, because I think that they probably would have been strongest if you wanted the straps at all to maybe like halfway down her torso. They're definitely too long. They're not adding, they're taking away. I don't like the way that the fabric is severing her hands and her fingers. You're losing all of the delicacy of the fingers, which is, if you don't have the fingers, then they just look like paws. And you're hand brawing it, which is just a huge no-no in my book. You can't have the girls like just cover up with their hands over them like that. It's boring. So you have to get a little more creative with the positioning of the hands to imply nudity without it just being like, look at me covering my nipples, because that's exactly what I hear every time I see one of those. Um, that said, I still think the light is beautiful on her. I love the dark backdrop. I think it suits her in this shot better than white would have. I love the tonality of the muscles and the detail there. The light's beautiful. Love the expression in the hair. So I'm going to give it a commendable, only because I cannot stand the hand bra and the straps. Other than that, I think it's a perfect image.
Yeah, somebody commented on the hands, and I laughed because I see it in the image, but in my head, I'm going through the whole shot, and she actually like went through the. It wasn't a pose. She basically had like undid her strap, and she started lowering her hands and lowering her hands until they weren't there anymore. And so like I don't shoot that much nudity, if any, at all. And so I wasn't going to put something like that out, but I love the look in her face, and that's probably why I chose it. But I totally get the hands, and then the other things that we already said. So.
And this one might actually work better as a like a three-quarter shot, like a portrait shot, where you could cut it just at the cleavage, and it would look nude without being. I think that would be stronger than the full body shot in this, and it would let you appreciate the expression in the face, because everything that's awesome about this shot is going on with the energy she's giving you in the face.
Yeah, that's a good point. So,
Food for thought.
yeah, I should go back and look at some of the other ones I have from this and see if I have something like that. But all right, next, last one. Okay. I don't know when I shot this. Maybe last summer. Not this summer, but last summer. In Austin, I think. And it was nice because she had a hair and makeup that came with her, which is pretty abnormal for my shoots because I'm not going to pay them for it. And a lot of the shoots I do are just for trade when I'm on the road. I travel a lot for work, and so when I'm not working, I shoot with people that I find in these areas. And so um, anyway, we did a shoot. This was kind of like towards the end. We wanted to mess up the hair a little bit and kind of make it a little crazy. Um, and this is all just natural light coming in from the window. That's actually the headboard behind us, or behind her. I kind of softened it up. I put some, probably alien skin or something, and I used a filter. I love the look in her face. There was some complaints, not complaints, but there was some negative criticism, or that they didn't like the hand pose because they felt like it was like, that kind of like have to throw the hand up there. I actually like it in this case, so I don't know if maybe I'm, misinterpreting my own photo, but yeah, I love this picture. And I think part of that hand was just to kind of hide her chest. But yeah, that's it.
So I positively love this shot. Um, I think it's gorgeous. The only thing that really jumps out at me is she has the same problem that I do. Her face is asymmetrical, and her one eye is noticeably larger than the other, and that is such a tedious and like brain surgeon type of retouching in order to kind of even it out without distorting the eye. But I definitely would have gone in and played with that just a little bit, just to open her right eye just a little bit more because it's so noticeable. And I think it's actually being accentuated by the fact that your light source is on her left. So anything that's lighter seems larger too because what catches the light is what protrudes. So that's accentuating it a little bit, but still, she's just gorgeous. Love the hair, love the makeup, love the retouching on it. I love the pearls and the necklace around her. I love the pose and the idea of the hand, but I think that hands are such, you really have to nail them when they're in the shot, especially when it's a close-up like this. So doing something like, having her bring it back further wouldn't have made it all palm because right now it's all just the heel of her hand, which is not the attractive part. It's always the fingers. So when you do that, either having it come back to her neck lets you still keep it in the same place, or you just have her pull her fingers away a little bit so that you still get some of the definition of the hand. A lot of times too, again, when doing the story, having her tuck her hair behind her ear, or play with earrings or something, you give her something to do with it. But it doesn't damage the shot for me. I just think that it could have been better. Out of all of the shots that you showed today, I think number 2 with the dancer and this one are your strongest. Her expression and the energy she's giving the camera are just flawless. So I'm going to give this one an exceptional. I think it's the best one that you have.
Awesome, thanks. So you mentioned about the eye, and I, I go into Photoshop and try to like experiment. I watch a lot of videos on like, hey, how do I enlarge that? How would you enlarge that eye without screwing up the iris and the pupil? Like, what are the? Do you have any resources or techniques? And I can Google it, but I didn't know if you knew anything of how you would do it.
It's really it's on a case by case basis, and it's liquefy and warp more than anything else. It's hard to walk you through it without being able to show you, but if you send me the file or post it, we'll do a retouching night, screen share, and retouch it live, and we'll record it. That way you have it for reference.
Okay, I can do that. I didn't mean for you to have to like do work. I was just curious. I've done it in Photoshop before, where I just butcher it every time. Like I go in there and then I'm just like, man, I just can't make it work. So it must be just that fine tuning and really small adjustments to just tweak it. So
It is, and sometimes it's sometimes you can't. You know, it just depends on the photo, and sometimes it's a blend of both. So if you have one that's significantly smaller, it's not just pulling that one larger. Sometimes it's like pulling that one up and pulling the other one closed a little bit, and you kind of meet somewhere in the middle. And the fact is that nobody's face is perfectly symmetrical either. Um, so you don't want to make them perfect because then it'll look because it's perfect. You know, like there's actually classes that Disney characters take on how to draw asymmetrical faces because they look too perfect otherwise, and they're not believable. So, and again, I don't think that it loses the shot. I just think that it's extremely noticeable with her. So it's something that I definitely would have gone in, and I think even the slightest adjustments would have helped because it's not even necessarily the pupil and the iris. If you look at the two, her one is closed up over the iris, and the other one you can see the white underneath. So that's it. It makes the one almost look droopy in comparison.
I have a set that I haven't edited yet that it's way more noticeable than even this one. So I'm good. I'm gonna have to figure that out and get it done right before I get to that set and edit them because it's definitely drives me nuts. Although I didn't notice it that much in this shot, I just looked at it as like the light is what's going across, not so much the eye. But when you point it out, it yeah, I can definitely see.
Yeah, so pick the one from the session that's the most noticeable because there's a couple of other retouching tutorials with some of the other apprentices that we're going to go through. So we'll just have a night and we'll go through a couple of images and we'll retouch them because I'm sure there's other people that'll run across that too, so it'll be handy for everyone.
One more video for the library.
Exactly. So, okay, so you're not here to make a living for it. So tell me a little bit about your life and what you're doing and what you are here for.
Okay. Well, I'm a professor at a university and not anything related to photography, something totally different. And it's awesome and I love it. It's the greatest job ever. And part of that is because it allows me the freedom to have time to do whatever the heck I want. I travel a ton for work, so I'm in the air probably 100,000 miles a year and to all over the world. So because of that, and you know, you're not working 24 hours a day, it affords me a lot of opportunity to shoot place. And so I've been into photography for a long time, but probably shooting people maybe 2.5 years. And it's just been like this, every 6 months there's like a new, not genre, but kind of a new style or a new thing that I want to do with people. And so it's constantly evolving. So the number one critique I get is, you know, your portfolio is all over the place. You don't have any kind of like direction. And it's true and not true to some extent. I just really haven't put together a portfolio that is shown, that is consistent. I have things on Instagram and Facebook and all over the place, and you can see the progression over 2.5 years of all the stuff that I've done. So what do I want to do? Yeah, I mean, I don't want to do this as a hobby to where, you know, I'm not making money. I get paid to do photography, and that's great, but it's not my primary source of income. And it allows me to choose projects I want to do and don't want to do, which is fantastic. And so if somebody asks me to shoot something that I'm not interested in, I just tell them I'm not interested in. Or I put a price that's so ridiculous that if they say yes, that I have to do it because it's lucrative. And so that's basically how I shoot. And so I guess it's kind of a little bit unique from that standpoint. But I went to school for 11 years and got a PhD and love the education process. So that's probably why I signed up for the Arcanum, because I was like, man, there's so many people there that you can learn from and with, and so I like the concept of it. And so I knew that it would take my photography to another level, even though I don't need it to be income to sustain my life.
So we don't need income, but we want income?
Yeah, I mean, I never want to feel like I'm taken advantage of with shooting. I don't want someone to say, oh, well, you can just shoot me and my kids and my family. I get it all the time. It's like, oh, why don't you just come shoot my newborn? And I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to do that. It's not of interest to me. So If I want to do it, I'll do it, and if I don't, then I won't. But usually I will say, like, this is my rate and this is my fee, and if you want me to do it, then you'll do it. But when I travel and I, find somebody on Model Mayhem or somebody, a friend of a friend, and I have a good concept, I don't have a problem with saying, look, I will shoot for trade. And I don't have a problem if it's a model I really want to work with. I would pay them to get the concept that I want. So I don't have a problem on both sides of it. Um, but it is nice to have an income out of it. I mean, it's nice to have a little bit extra money. I just don't want it to run my life. It's definitely a side job and a passion and not a need to earn that.
Okay, so your focus is on passion, not on profit, which is totally fine. Especially if you're the first person that said, "I love my job," that I believe. Everybody else is like, "Well,
I do love it.
Job, and I like it," and I'm like, "No, you don't. You just don't think you can make the money from it." So, if you were going to get a monthly stipend, if I was going to send you $10,000 a month every month for the rest of your life, would you still teach at your job right now?
Yeah, you could send me $30,000 a month, and I wouldn't quit my job. I love my job. It's a good income. I'm good at it. It really allows me flexibility to do all the other things I want to do, and so love the job that as I'm primarily paid for. So no, I mean, 100,000 a month, then I might change it, but it would take a considerable amount of money to make me not want to do what I do.
Well, and that's the idea. Like, if somebody was sending me 10, 30, 100,000 a month, and I never had to do it, I would be doing exactly what I'm doing right. Like, I would still be in hurricane teaching, and I would be working on personal projects. Like, that's what I do with my free time. So that's what I want everybody else to get to the point that they can do. So that answer usually changes. Like, people consider what they can make money at, and that's different from what they want to spend their time doing. And the idea is to get those two in sync. That being said, if you're not necessarily looking to market to clients because you don't need to be paid, then who cares what your portfolio is?
Yeah, I do. I mean, that's who cares. In my head of what I am planning on what I would like to do, yeah, right? What I would like to do is I'd like to get a consistent portfolio that I'm happy with, that I think represents where I want to go, and rebuild my website, which is, hasn't been touched in years, and have like a really nice, clean, well put together website that represents how I want to be seen, how I want my work to be seen. But in terms of like portfolio to get clients, I don't really care from that standpoint. It's more a personal thing, like I want to be seen as somebody that is serious as a photographer and not just like, it's a guy with a camera. Like, that's not how I think of myself in photography. So I think that some of my early work, it's a lot easier, and you probably know this too, but it's a lot easier to get people to want to shoot boudoir and lingerie, especially young people, because then they get more noticed when people are looking at them in lingerie and not in something that's a little bit different. So that's what a lot of my early work was, and I still like it, and I like it for a reason that's not because it's a sexy girl. I like it because in shooting for 2.5 years, predominantly women, I guess I shouldn't be amazed, but I'm amazed at how they see themselves. And all the things that they nitpick at over what they, it's always like, oh, yeah, I'd probably good looking, but this is what I like. And to me, I immediately, within 2 minutes of seeing somebody, I'm like, oh, this is what, like, your cheekbones are stunning, your eyes are great. Like, I immediately go to, like, the part that I find amazing and beautiful, and they never do. So in shooting with people, like, I've developed this kind of rapport with working with even strangers where, like, I get this comfort level that's, like, awesome right from the beginning, because I have no intentions of anything other than to try and get awesome pictures with them and develop, a cool shoot. So that is really a draw for me from that type of photography, because I think that I love when you can show them the final images or just talk to them during a shoot and make them, realize that, like, man, there's so many good things and qualities that they have. And I just think it's a function of people in general, and insecurities. But I'm I'm a pretty secure person, and maybe I don't have any reason to be, but I am, and I don't care. So I find it so strange when I see that, but I like being able to interact with people on that level and kind of try to diffuse that a little bit, I guess.
So I'm not quite honed in on what exactly you're trying to accomplish then. Do you just want to make a name for yourself? Is it about like fame rather than fortune?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's fame. I'd like to have people, look at my work and be like, oh, that's that person, and we know who that is. But I don't know if it's like fame.
That's
I don't.
fame.
It's not like an ego thing. Yeah, no. But what I mean is like I'd like them to be able to look. I can look at certain photographers and be like, oh, that is a Joel Grimes, or that is a Trey Ratcliffe. Like I'd love to be able to develop it out to where it's good enough that people looked at it. And so yeah, I guess to some degree that's part of it. I don't ever want it to get in the way with what I love to do, which is my job. I don't want this to become a job. Like that is where I probably lose my passion, is where it's like, oh yeah, I have to do this as a job. Um, so I don't know. It's again, this is the hang up for me, is where am I going with this and what am I going to do? And for the last 2.5 years, it's just been about improving and trying to get better and in working with people in my Photoshop and my in-camera editing. But that's kind of why I signed up for the Arcanum, to get pushed to figure it out a little bit more defined. Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's totally fine. Like you don't have to know exactly where you are or where you're going necessarily. It's when people know what they want and they won't commit to it that's the problem. And you don't strike me as that type at all. You actually strike me as very self-confident in that when you know that you want it, you will go for it. So the trick with you is actually the opposite of everyone else, where we just have to figure out what it is that you're looking to do. Because your work is good, and if you're shooting and you're not concerned about the money, people will shoot with you for free all day long because you're above some of the people that get paid to shoot. So if it's more of a notoriety thing and people knowing your work and you having a definitive style that's easily recognized and you having a household name where people will go, oh yeah, it's that John, it's not that other guy, it's that John. Then I suppose the question would become, what is it that you want to be known for?
I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet. I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
Okay, so
from a photography standpoint, I don't know. From a work standpoint, I know what I'm known for, and I know that what I do. So, and I'm happy in that realm. From a photography standpoint, I don't know. I don't know.
You're very confident and very happy in your job. So, what is it that you're known for, and who are you in your career?
Oh, from my career, what am I'm a professor at Penn State. I run one of the turfgrass science programs, which is a major that nobody nobody knows about. But I put through probably 25 students a year. I interact with them in golf courses, and I'm around golf events, and I research and write papers and write articles and teach and give lectures and give seminars to hundreds, if not 1,000 people at a time, and I love all of that aspect of it. I love everything about it. So that's really that's the work me, and then photography is kind of like, all right, I need to take a step back from that every once in a while and not be immersed in work, and that's where my creative outlet is, and it's totally different than anything, and we kind of hinted on this before, like people have a different impression of what I do because they see the end pictures. And I'm in a very conservative business. I mean, photography, academia, although academia is pretty liberal, but shooting people that are in lingerie is not necessarily what every male academic person does. And then so they see it as like this weird thing, and I don't see it like that at all. I mean, I kind of explain why I love working with people and shooting that type of stuff. But yeah, so from a work standpoint, I'm I think, a successful professor. I run one of the best programs in the country. And it's awesome. It allows me and affords me the opportunity to do things that I wouldn't in any other job. From a photography standpoint, I'm still figuring it out.
Okay, so let's fast forward because artists are always worth more when they're dead. And let's look at your work in a museum 50, 100, 150, 200 years from now. What do you want people to say about your work?
I don't know. I don't think of myself being in a museum 100 years from now. I'm not sure that's a goal of mine, but maybe it is. Maybe ultimately, that is the type of recognition I want. I don't know. I think on a short-term basis, like I want people even locally. Like this is a town that's a college town that has tons of people, and it always changes. There's always new young people coming in. I want people to come in and see my work and be like, I don't care what it's going to take. I have to shoot with that person. Like on a short term, that's kind of what I would like to be at. I'd like people to like find me and seek me out and be like, I don't care what it's going to take. I have to shoot with you because I love your work. Long term museum stuff, I don't know. I have no clue.
Okay, so even with that, I see this person and I have to work with their work. What is it that they see that they have to work with? What are the descriptors?
I don't know. Oh, you're asking too many questions. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I guess from what isn't the description, I don't want it to be, well, he's the only person in the area that shoots like that, so that's why I want to work with him. I want it to have some definitive style. My style is moving in a different direction probably than it had in the past, but and I'm still trying to find it and have that consistency. I think that one of the things that I want people to know in terms of shooting with me, and why they would want to, is that you're not hiring somebody, you're not working with somebody that's going to say, we have 45 minutes and that's the time I have and that's it. Anytime I take on a project or want to do something, I'm like all in, and time is not even an issue because we're in this together because I agreed to this project. So you're going to get that attention and dedication, and we go through the whole process of building up what the shoot's going to be a month in advance. And so kind of that personal attention, someone that's going to like make them feel comfortable and draw out the emotion, but get these amazing shots. I think maybe that's what I would want the storyline to be if people were going to say why they had to work with me. I mean, you look at Sue Bryce or somebody or you, and they're like, I have to work with this person because I know they're going to give me everything that I want, and it's going to be an amazing shoot. And that's kind of how I want people to.
And I totally agree with that, but the thing is that you have to have the answer to that question of what that thing is, because the people that have to be shot by Sue Bryce won't settle for me, and the people that have to be shot by me won't want Sue Bryce. Nobody that wants really gorgeous, sexy boudoir pictures is going to call up Trey Ratcliffe. And not that he couldn't do it and do an absolutely gorgeous job, but having the answer to what is it about my work is the first step in having people go, yes, I have to work with that person. So that's your homework for the day.
Yeah, that's my level 5 critique of this thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so we do the critiques again at level 9. So by the time you get to level 9, and part of level 5 is figuring out how you want the critique to go, but your personal assignment just for you is to figure out exactly what it is that you want to do and who you want to be known as and what you want to be known for. What is it about your work? If they have to have it, what is it?
Okay, time to think.
Have fun.
Appreciate it.
All right, so you survived your level 4 critique. You're going to go back and count because you get 1 karma point for every point that you scored in critique. You definitely passed with flying colors. I will see you again at level 9.
All right, awesome. Thanks.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.